Republican battle for a new House Speaker has descended into an even bigger mess this morning, just one day after the party nominated Majority Leader Steve Scalise for the position. The Louisiana congressman withdrew from the race last night.
I just shared with my colleagues that I'm withdrawing my name as a candidate for the Speaker designee. If you look at over the last few weeks, if you look at where our conference is, there's still work to be done. Our conference still has to come together and is not there.
Joining us now, MSNBC contributor Mike Marnicle, and another Mike, the co-founder of Axios, Mike Allen, and congressional reporter for The Hill, Michael Schnell. And Joe, what happened? What could have happened at this point? Wouldn't it be a moment now more than ever where they need things to just function? Get someone in place, let's go.
It is inexplicable. I mean, I don't know of any political party that would ever act that way. We had a problem with Newt Gingrich. We took care of that problem in between sessions, and he moved on. And Republican, John Boehner complained about his problems, and for good reason. Paul Ryan quietly would grouse about it, but things were done in a somewhat orderly process. So you didn't have this happening in the middle of two of the biggest wars in recent history. And so it's a recklessness.
Yeah.
It's an irresponsibility.
Yeah.
It's a lack of leadership, the likes of which none of us have ever seen from the House or the Senate, really, in our lifetime. It seems to me, Jonathan Lemire, it's one thing when you have 8 people deciding they're going to go their own way. But you had half the conference deciding that they weren't going to go with the will of the majority of the conference, as has always happened. So this has spread from 8 people to maybe 90, 95 people. Now it seems to me, I'm wondering if there's any reporting. Are they thinking about somebody like Patrick McHenry just as a temporary speaker, where they say, okay, you hold the gavel, you run this place until we can get our act together, because there is a hot war in the Middle East. There's a hot war in the center of Europe. And in both cases, our allies are in crisis and are going to need our help.
A phrase we use a lot in this modern era of politics, the Trump era, if you will, is we've never seen this before. When we've never seen this before, you come out of that closed-door meetings with your nominee, that person is going to be speaker. Steve Scalise,
right,
though, didn't even come close. And that's just it. He bailed last night because he wasn't just a few votes shy. He was dozens of votes shy. So now, where do we go from here? There are some who support Jim Jordan, who was the runner-up to Scalise, saying, well, he can make another chance now. Although people we talked to on the Hill suggest his chances are just as slim as Scalise's were. There is still this thought of a dark horse, sort of more mainstream moderate candidate who can jump in. Not clear who that would be. Some Republicans saying, well, we've got to make a deal with the Democrats now. Maybe we can get their support. Democrats saying, well, we might be into that, but we're going to need some real concessions and promises to make that happen. And then there's the McHenry point where there's some momentum there, the idea of trying to create some sort of mechanism, Mike Allen, where he could step in a temporary way, because this is happening at such a destabilizing moment. The war in Israel, what's happening in Ukraine, government shutdown deadline, that's on the horizon. That's only a month away. But again, it's not clear whether they'll be able to pull that off. What are you hearing? Is there any end in sight to this crisis?
Yeah, the Axios Hill team has new reporting this morning that a bipartisan group of about 10 House members are talking about how they could do it, how they could find a speaker. I know that behind the scenes, I'm told that there have been talks about some kind of power sharing. Like, could there be, Democrats suggest, like a couple of speakers that would be acceptable to them? In turn, they get some say about what goes on the floor. It could be some pretty subtle procedural changes that they would go for. They would get in there. I will say, I'm skeptical. Like you, I've lived through all too many centrist moments.
Yeah.
But this is an emergency.
Really?
So, Michael Schnell, you've been reporting on every twist and turn of this process up until minutes ago. I'm sure you're on the phone. So, it's unclear that anyone, is it not, could get 217. So Scalise can step aside and then they can say, well, it's Jim Jordan. Well, Jim Jordan lost to Steve Scalise in that preliminary round of voting. Is there anybody in that caucus who can get to 217?
And look, Willie, that's obviously the key question here. And I think that you bring up two really key points that I want to touch on. A, Republicans are likely now going to put up a new candidate, Jim Jordan, as you mentioned, who actually secured fewer votes than Steve Scalise in that internal election. The final tally was 113 to 99. So Republicans are now going to try to move ahead with Jim Jordan, who already has less support within the conference. Not really a good place to start at. And then when you get into, is there anybody who can secure enough support to wield the gavel? Look, Jim Jordan is likely going to have the same problem that Steve Scalise had. The fact that the House GOP majority is so slim, you need to have near unanimous support to win the speakership on the House floor. There are already some Republicans coming out against Jim Jordan, by my count, 2, Ann Wagner and Austin Scott. Already, it's an uphill climb for him.
Mike Marnicle, I was hearing sound bites from some of these, I guess, backbenchers, extremists, about why Steve Scalise shouldn't have the job or whatever. They were saying things that were so stupid and cruel and just beyond even bringing up at this table. But don't these people see the fire that's burning around the world, that they should think above themselves, perhaps, and operate? What's going on?
It's nice seeing an optimist this early.
I'm not optimistic. I'm just trying to figure it out.
It's not even a case of a tyranny of the minority. It's a tyranny of 10.
Yeah.
And yet in the middle of that, you get a ray of common sense from even what used to be the Republican Party. I was listening to Chairman Mike McFaul yesterday, chair of the House Foreign Relations Committee. And he was as upset about what is happening as we are, apparently, today, and as many people are today. They lack the ability to govern, the basic ability to govern, and they don't care about it.
Yeah.
When you go to vote for your member of Congress, no matter who it is, no matter what party you're in, you want them to do one thing. You want them to do their job. And their job is doing something for their constituents.
Exactly.
And they've lost that ability.
Joe.
Well, and you are so right, and I'm so glad you brought up Chairman McCall. He not only is right on this point, he's been right on Ukraine.
Absolutely.
He's actually been pushing the Biden administration to move further and move faster with the deployment of weapons. I know, because it was on the Hill a few weeks ago. I know there are Republicans who want to get this moving, and they are enraged. First of all, that 8 people held things up. I think, though, now, listen, I would work a deal. I would say to the Republicans, either get your act together, or we're going to work a deal with the Democrats, and you're going to get run over. That's how, that's what happened when I was in Congress. You stand in the way of what's best for your party and what's best for your country. People build coalitions and they run over you. We always hear that, it's such a small minority. Mike Allen, I'll go to you on this one. Then I want to go to Richard on another question. But I'll go to you, Mike Allen. Everybody's always talking about, it's such a small Republican majority. It's such a small. Who could ever? I'll tell you who could. Nancy Pelosi. She had a small majority. And we always said on this, people say, well, will this bill pass? And I'd always say, if it goes to the House floor, it will pass. Because Nancy Pelosi knows how to run her caucus. She knows how to pass bills. I'm just struck, Mike Allen, that we talked about Chairman McCall. I know he's a very capable leader. I know the chairwoman of the Appropriations Committee. I worked with her. She's very capable. There are very capable Republicans. I just wonder, at what point do they say, you guys, you work with us, so we're going to run you over and we're going to find some Democrats that will help us govern this House?
Joe, that's the perfect contrast. Do you govern from fear or do you govern from strength? And that's the fatal flaw in the deal that Kevin McCarthy took to get the job, that he was never going to be able to lead by strength. He was in fear of the tyranny of the one in the case of the chance of losing the gavel. And that's why Republicans are weak. There's not somebody who can say, this is what we're going to do. This is what we have to do.
Show.
Yeah, and either go along with the party, stop undermining the party, or we're going to run you over politically. It's that simple. That's how it works when you have people who know how to run things. And let's hope for the sake of the country. Let's hope for Israel. Let's hope for Ukraine. Let's hope for the American people that the Republicans will find that person.